What a wonderful world. I have seen skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day in those dark sacred nights, and I think to myself, yes, what a wonderful world. Oh yes it is. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, and all the smiling faces of people going by. I've seen friends shaking hands saying, how do you do? What they're really saying is, I love you. I have heard those babies cry, and I've watched them grow. They'll learn many things that I'll never know. Ooh, and I think yes to myself, baby, what a wonderful world. I have heard those babies cry, and I've watched them grow. They'll learn many things that I'll never know. And I think to myself, yes, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, yes, what a wonderful world. Oh, yes, it is. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to you.
That was Kweku Jelani. What a wonderful world indeed. The Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honorable Mia Amor Motley. Miss Damilola Ogunbiyi, Chief Executive Officer and Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All, and co-chair of UN Energy. The President of Sierra Leone, His Excellency, the President Julius Maada Bio. The Honorable Dr. Doto Mashaka Biteko, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Energy, the United Republic of Tanzania. Senator the Honorable Lisa Cummins, Minister of Energy and Business Development, Barbados. Ministers of Government, Heads of Delegation, His Excellency Yemi Osinbajo, High Eminent Vice President, Office of the Vice President, former Vice President of Nigeria, the former Second Lady of Ghana, Samira Bawumia, COP29 President, Mr. Mukhtar Babayev, other specially invited guests, distinguished delegates, honorable ladies and gentlemen, I greet you with a wonderful good morning. Now you've got to give me at least an ounce of that energy that I've given you back this week. Can we try that one more time? Good morning. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to the 2025 Sustainable Energy for All Global Forum being held right here in one of the most beautiful and enchanting islands you will find anywhere in the world. I challenge you. Our home, Barbados. My name is SEforALL, and I am honored to serve as your Master of Ceremonies and host for this important and exciting global forum. But I'm conscious this is a global audience, so allow me please to flex a few of the skills I've gained while completing my Duolingo challenges recently. Buenos días a todos. Oh, okay. Bienvenido a Barbados. Estamos muy encantados de que estén aquí. Disfruten de la gente, la comida y las hermosas playas. Was that good? Okay. One more. Bonjour tout le monde. Ça va? Très bien. One more. Bienvenue à la Barbade. Nous sommes ravis de vous compter parmi nous. Profitez déjà de la nourriture et des belles plages. Ce sera une conférence mémorable. Unfortunately, everyone, I am out of languages, so we're going to proceed in English if that's okay with you. Your presence here today underscores the collective commitment to addressing one of the most pressing challenges of our time, ensuring sustainable, equitable, and resilient energy systems for all. As the world faces the escalating impacts of climate change, energy poverty, and economic inequality, we are reminded that the solutions we seek require collaboration at every level. That's across governments, private sector leaders, development organizations, and the wider civil society. This cannot be what we call in the Caribbean a talk shop. Over the coming days, we will explore innovative solutions, mobilize partnerships, and drive forward policy decisions that will accelerate the energy transition while ensuring that no one is left behind. From harnessing renewable energy to financing sustainable infrastructure, from strengthening global cooperation to supporting vulnerable communities, this is a collective effort that demands bold leadership and decisive action. It is only fitting, therefore, that we open the curtain on today's discussions by hearing from a leader representing a nation at the vanguard of sustainable energy and climate action globally. Barbados has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to renewable energy solutions, climate resilience, and a just energy transition, making it a powerful voice in the global conversation. To deliver the official welcome remarks, please join me in welcoming Senator the Honorable Lisa Cummins, Minister of Energy and Business Development, Barbados.
If you could see what I see from up here, you look incredible. I am not Raphael, but welcome to Barbados. Welcome to my home. You look amazing sitting in this room. I want to establish the protocol as outlined by our MC, Raphael, but I want to take a moment to recognize some of our very special guests who have traveled a long way to be here with us today. President of Sierra Leone, we are very honored to have you here, a brother and a friend to Barbados, and our Prime Minister, we are honored to welcome you to our home. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Energy of Tanzania, you are a brother and you are a friend, and we are very pleased to welcome you to Barbados along with your ministers and your members of your delegation to join us on this important occasion. I want also to take the opportunity to welcome my fellow ministers from around the world. We have ministers who have traveled from the African continent, from across the Pacific, small island developing states like ourselves, and you are all here today for a reason. I cannot, of course, not mention my own colleagues here who would love to be here with us this morning, but Parliament in Barbados is in session, and those of you who are ministers, you know the importance of an annual budget presentation, and we are in the throes of that annual process right here, and most of the ministers who are following from a distance are not necessarily happy that they're missing the opportunity to interface with you, but they send their greetings in absentia. But I do have one of my colleague senators here with me and colleague cabinet ministers, Senator on the Honorable Chad Blackman, who is a friend, a brother to many of you and certainly to me, and I'm very grateful that he is able to be here with us today. We have a number of international organizations who have traveled from all parts of the globe to be here as well. The members of the United Nations fraternity, the various international financial institutions, private wealth management institutions, and our partners from across the globe. My sister and friend, former Second Lady of Ghana, we're so happy to have you here with us. And we have the powerhouses from around the globe. But today could not be possible without my sister and my friend, Damilola. I call her Dami. And so many moons ago, it feels like it was many moons ago, but it was just maybe 2.5 years ago, I had just taken up the seat of Minister of Energy and Business in Barbados, and I believe the very first letter I got from anyone, anywhere in the world, was from the UN Assistant Secretary General on behalf of Dami. And they reached out and they offered to work with Barbados on our energy transition. And as they say, not just here, but everywhere else, the rest is history. We're all here today, and we're going to be launching the culmination of the body of work that we have worked together with Damilola and the entire SEforALL team. And I know that my own team in the Ministry of Energy in particular, they're here today, but they have twinned in every possible way with the SEforALL team that have worked with them hand in glove like sister and brother over the last 2 years. And we are very honored to host SEforALL Global Forum here this week, and also to have had the members of the board of SEforALL here with us. Many of you we know in your individual capacity, and we're very happy to welcome you to Barbados. So as I was pondering what I would say here today, I had to think about it for a little bit, because this is an impressive audience. You also have among you members of our local private sector, members of our local development community, members of our hemispheric and regional development community, and all of you, in your respective ways, are vested in the conversations that we are having here today. And so as I reflected over the conversations that many of us have been having in our respective nations over the course of the last few years, we've all heard the buzz. We've all had the whispers and the conversations around the world that we now live in. We hear from every corner wars and rumors of war, development versus underdevelopment versus sustainable development. We, the leaders from across the globe in particular, many of us from the global south, along with all of our development partners, we're gathered here today against that backdrop. We're gathered here to discuss how the energy transition can connect with the legitimate expectations of our people. How do we make electricity more affordable? How do we ensure that we eradicate energy poverty? How do we ensure that all across Africa, every single citizen has access to clean and affordable energy? For the small island developing states, we are on the front line of the climate crisis, the debt crisis, the development crisis, the sustainability crisis, the vulnerability crisis, and the invisibility crisis. Oftentimes, as we sit at the table, our voices are seen, and we often feel as if they're not heard. So for the SIDS, for Africa, for the developing world, for the South, we need to be seen, we need to be heard. Our concerns need to be given the agency that we require. That is why my Prime Minister, who you will hear in a few minutes, has become the global champion for a range of issues. She's become the name, the face, and the voice for issues relating to climate, to financing, access to affordable financing. These are issues that we will talk about over the coming days, and they constitute a legitimate conversation. From every single corner, it feels as though there is a clear and a present danger. So when in 2011, former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon created SEforALL, if you go back and look at the speeches of the times, what we feel, what we see, what we hear now could easily be representative of an entirely different time. If we look back to 2008, when former US Vice President Al Gore issued the call to action to the United States to transition to 100% renewables in 10 years, then he too was talking about a clear and present danger. Here we are in 2024, the home of the Bridgetown Plan of Action. We have in the room the ministers that I've spoken about before who led with the Samoa Plan of Action after the Bridgetown Plan of Action. In the African region, we had the launch of the Africa 300 initiative. Today, my friends, colleagues, we are still having the same conversations that we have been having for the last several decades. My question to you here in this room, the nation led by Prime Minister Motley, the global champion that I've talked about, who has not been afraid to challenge the existing status quo, what are we going to walk away from here at the end of the next 2 days? How are we going to use this occasion, yet another watershed moment in our history, where we, like Ban Ki-moon, set our targets for the achievement of our goals? How do we, over the next 2 days, map a pathway to an energy transition that accelerates access to affordable financing to SIDS and all the developing economies? How do we look at the issues of bankability, availability of financing, and balancing the important needs of our people who across the globe have said to us they feel excluded, but they need to be included. They feel disenfranchised, but they need to be enfranchised. They feel as though they don't have empowerment, but need to be empowered. How do we walk away from here on Thursday evening with a supporting framework that creates bridges from the African continent, the Pacific region, to hear us in the Caribbean in meaningful ways that support research and development, innovation, sustainability, investment, inclusion, affordable financing, and new mechanisms that make people the center of an energy transition? How do we translate legitimate conversations into deliverables, wants, and for all? What are the financial instruments that we're going to walk away from here today that can be used to de-risk renewable energy and energy efficiency projects in the global south? How do we map a pathway from the creation of SEforALL in 2011 to today, and then onwards to 2030? How do we get to 100% renewables, as we saw in Dubai in the second to last COP? Friends, the time is now. The urgency of now has quite frankly been exhausted. We have seen far more watershed moments in history than we can count. There's always a battle of some kind. There will always be a battle of some kind. There's always been danger, and perhaps that will never change, but how do we make a forward trajectory out of this present moment? Can we walk away from here today, tomorrow, with a clear New Deal for the South? How can we, with all of you here, with institutions like SEforALL, with dynamic and incredible leaders like Damilola, and with institutions like the United Nations, whose role and mandate remains as valid today as it was when it was created in 1945, how do we walk away from here with meaningful results? To our development partners, what role will you play? To our developed nation partners, what role will you play? What will we do together? The road from the creation of SEforALL to now, and from COP in Paris to Rio next year, up ahead, it is paved with promises that need to be met, deliverables that have to be accomplished, and the time to change must begin with us, right here, right now, in this moment, and not a moment later. So this is a call to action for all of us, and I know that the fact that you have come from all parts of the globe, that you have shared the same commitment to delivering on meaningful results for the people who are depending on us to do just that. Welcome to Barbados. Our road is set out for us, and we've got a lot of work to do over the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those warm opening remarks, Minister Cummins, Minister of Energy and Business Development, Barbados. If there were 3 C's I could extract from her presentation, it would be the importance of creativity in the solutions that are designed during this forum, the importance of commitment to ensuring this is an all-of-society approach and collaboration, because private, public sector, and development agencies must work together towards this enterprise. Our next speaker is the Chief Executive Officer and Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All, and the co-chair of UN Energy, looking absolutely radiant this morning. I'm pleased to welcome Ms. Damilola Ogunbiyi.
Your Excellency Mia Motley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, Your Excellency Julius Bio, the President of Sierra Leone, Your Excellency Biteko, the Deputy Prime Minister of Tanzania, and also the Minister of Energy. Your Excellency Yemi Oshibajo, SAN, the former Vice President of Nigeria, members of the SEforALL Governing Board. Fun fact, as I was here, I got a text by someone on my team to say, "You are not Minister Cummings. Read your speech." So I'm going to read my speech as they have presented it to me, because I think she articulated it very well, and my team will actually kill me if I don't. So, honorable ministers, esteemed colleagues, friends within the UN family, World Bank family, and also African Development Bank, ladies and gentlemen, I am so pleased to welcome you to the 6th edition of the Sustainable Energy for All Global Forum. I do not take it for granted that many of you had to travel a very long way to be with us today. We value your presence here today and look forward to working with all of you to make this forum, as Minister Cummings said, a really meaningful milestone towards our shared goals on energy, climate, and development. I also want to share my appreciation and wish everyone who observes Ramadan and Lent the best during this holy time. Please know that your dedication to the cause of the global energy transition does not go unnoticed. And finally, I'd like to express my greatest appreciation and gratitude to Her Excellency Mia Motley, my sister, Minister Cummings, the entire government of Barbados, who have been wonderful, and also the people of Barbados for co-hosting this year's forum in Barbados. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, energy is more than a commodity. It is a human right. We must seek to solve the energy access challenge with a commitment to giving people power for a dignified and productive life. We simply cannot be satisfied providing poor solutions for poor people. Therefore, we must go beyond basic levels of lighting and charging to provide energy that can create jobs and sustain economies. We are at a pivotal moment in our transformation and the global energy transformation. There are 2 tides that are competing right now. How we collectively decide to act at this moment will determine whether we progress on our shared goals or we undo decades of action. As the global geopolitics evolves, international cooperation, especially on clean energy, is at an all-time low. And yet the economics of energy transition has never been more favorable, especially for developing countries, where the energy transition offers us the development opportunities of our lifetimes. Being here in the Caribbean, we can see firsthand that climate change is no longer a distant threat. It is affecting here affecting communities, affecting economies, and affecting ecosystems, from flooding in coastal communities to heat distress in agricultural regions. As part of the solution, I'd like to highlight Barbados, which holds a unique position in the global landscape because it's one of the few countries that aims to achieve net zero in the next 10 years. Through the Barbados Energy Transition and Investment Plan, the country has the opportunity to transform its economy while demonstrating what is possible in a small island state. Excellencies, we have less than 5 years to 2030, the end line for the Sustainable Development Goals, as we urgently need to push for higher ambition, stronger policies, greater financial flows, increased localization and green jobs, and faster results towards SDG 7, which calls for affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for everyone by 2030. This is why this forum is coming at such a timely point in our evolution, as it comes 6 weeks after the Mission 300 Africa Energy Summit, hosted by the World Bank and the African Development Bank, in support with the Rockefeller Foundation, the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, and ourselves, Sustainable Energy for All. At this summit, we saw over 26 heads of states have a commitment that they want their countries to reach universal energy access. The other pivotal moment that comes is the latest National Determined Contribution process, also known to many of us as NDC 3.0, that took place last month, where some countries have updated their climate commitments in line with their Paris Agreement. However, today, I urge others to join these efforts. The NDC process is more important than ever today to signal that international processes on climate are not critical for the planet, but they are invaluable to nations and the people within these nations. I am pleased that present today we have the COP29 president, and we also have the executive director of UNFCCC, showcasing the importance of international collaboration and leveraging their leaderships to find solutions and pathways for an equitable transition, which is what we need in this moment. Together with many of you in this room, we have co-created a solutions-based agenda. I am particularly keen to hear about how we can mobilize and deploy the right technologies and capacity to scale solutions. I'm also really excited and look forward to the DRE fund launch today that we're doing jointly with African 50, the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, and the International Solar Alliance, which shows how, as Africans, we have to find the solutions for ourselves, and sometimes we have to look inwards instead of just looking for people to help us. As I conclude, I have to take a moment to thank the Middle East Green Initiative of Saudi Arabia and also the Nigerian government for all their support, all our funding partners, as well as our funding sponsors. Your wavering support has been truly invaluable, and your mission to make sure no one is left behind. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Damilola. Sustainable Development Goal 7 aims to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all by 2030, encompassing targets like universal access to energy, increasing renewable energy, and doubling the global rate of improvement in energy efficiency. It is most fitting, therefore, that we now hear from Ms. Amina Mohammed, the United Nations Deputy Secretary General, joining us by video this morning.
Milestone, the 10th anniversary of both the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement. A decade has passed, and while progress has been made, we remain far from our targets. Fossil fuel emissions continue to rise, renewable energy investments in developing countries are insufficient, and too many people still lack access to clean and affordable energy. At the heart of this challenge lies SDG 7, ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. It is critical to achieving our climate and development goals. However, we cannot ignore the scale of the challenges we face: a lack of accessible and affordable finance, severe debt distress, and high capital costs. Yet the solutions are within our reach: reforming the international financial architecture, creating coherent policy and regulatory frameworks, updating risk assessments to account for climate risks, and leveraging innovative finance to unlock capital at scale. This year's forum is particularly significant, as it marks the first time it has been held in the Caribbean, a region that exemplifies both the promise and the peril of energy transitions. While electricity access is near universal, there remains a heavy dependence on expensive and polluting fossil fuel imports. Barbados, our host, is already leading the way, setting a bold example with its commitment to 100% renewable energy by 2030. This level of ambition must be embraced worldwide to drive a just and sustainable energy future. Excellencies, 2025 is the turning point. The solutions do exist, the technology is here, and the economics are favorable. But time is running out. We've just 5 years to 2030 to close the energy access gap and to halve emissions if we're to stay on track for our 1.5-degree target. The urgency for bold collective action cannot be overstated. As you engage in these crucial discussions, I urge you to focus on 3 guiding principles. First, collaboration is more crucial than ever. We must work together across sectors, ministries, actors, and regions to make progress. This means collaboration between government ministries, between state and non-state actors, between multilateral, regional, and national development banks, and by working closely with the UN resident coordinators to ensure alignment with national priorities and accelerate implementation on the ground. Second, creativity is needed to address the complexities of our diverse challenges. Some countries must modernize utility-scale grids to integrate renewables and phase out coal and gas, while others will expand decentralized and flexible renewable-powered systems. Innovation is the key to unlocking solutions that work for all contexts. Third, coherence between national energy strategies, development priorities, and climate ambition. This will all be essential. Action to accelerate SDG 7 must be fully aligned with the transition away from fossil fuels. National climate plans and NDCs, due before COP30 in Brazil, must serve as roadmaps for transforming economies and societies to be 1.5 Celsius aligned, resilient, and prosperous. The United Nations stands with you to turn these principles into decisive, actionable outcomes. Excellencies and friends, our window for action is closing, and we cannot afford to delay. This is a moment to transform commitments into results. A cleaner, fairer, and more resilient energy future is within our reach. Let's work together, rise to the challenge, and turn our collective ambition into tangible impacts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mohammed. A call to action for broad-based collaboration and commitment. Continuing our opening statements in this opening plenary session, I now invite COP29 President and representative of the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan on climate issues, the climate envoy, Mr. Mukhtar Babayev.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be back in Bridgetown. I must thank the government of Barbados, Prime Minister Mia Mottley, and Ms. Damilola for bringing us together and for your consistent leadership. Dear colleagues, when we took over the COP29 chairmanship and embarked on this journey, there was no guarantee for a success. We faced many challenges, and we had to deliver some of the most complex mandates. But we never accepted that the task was impossible. We knew that outcomes could not be everything for everyone. But we were focused on the need to find solutions that would be as fair, ambitious, and effective as possible. And we are proud of what we achieved together. First, we needed to make progress on energy. We worked with the International Energy Agency to facilitate dialogue and consensus. And we brought over 60 countries together to endorse the COP29 declarations on energy storage, grids, zones, corridors, and hydrogen. These declarations aim to accelerate commitments while providing a clear roadmap for scaling up renewables and improving energy efficiency, key to meeting urgent net zero targets. Thus, the COP29 presidency's energy pledges will foster cooperation, strengthen political commitment, and drive meaningful action. They will support technology innovation, infrastructure development, interconnection, and other critical aspects of sustainability and energy efficiency. I take this opportunity to invite all those who have not yet supported to join COP29 energy initiatives, helping to make them as inclusive and globally impactful as possible. Dear colleagues, the final Baku finance goal was a historic commitment. It was a promise to mobilize $300 billion a year for the developing world by 2035. It tripled the previous goal and is the largest financial commitment ever made in the UN negotiations. It will provide investment in clean energy systems for communities around the world. And it sent a clear call to scale up finance from all sources to $1.3 trillion a year. The COP29 presidency will work to ensure that countries enact the pact that they will have made. This was a collective agreement, and collectively it must be delivered, with developed countries taking the lead. And we are working closely with our Brazilian colleagues to set out the Baku to Belém roadmap to 1.3 trillion. Dear colleagues, international support and partnership are essential. But at the same time, everyone needs to play their part to create the enabling conditions for the energy transition. This year is critical because all parties to the Paris Agreement must submit their national determined contributions. Every country must aspire to design its NDCs, making them both ambitious and actionable. UNFCCC Executive Director, Mr. Simon Steele, has already spoken on the need for countries to submit their NDCs by September at the absolute latest. This is necessary so that they can be synthesized ahead of COP30 and we can make decisions based on facts about our collective progress. And second, these plans can serve as green light for green investment, setting targets and timelines, highlighting priority sectors and industries, and demonstrating government commitment to clean energy will send strong market signals. These signals will attract and guide investment. Therefore, we have worked with colleagues across the UN to make support available for everyone to develop these plans. Ladies and gentlemen, last year we were amazed to see how far we could go when we worked together. This year, we will hold governments to account for the promises they made in Baku, Azerbaijan. We will continue to facilitate dialogue on the next steps in the energy transition. And we look forward to many more years of partnership. I thank you.
Thank you for your opening remarks, Mr. Mukhtar Babayev, COP29 President. We're making a slight adjustment to our schedule at this time, and I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Kassem Falata, Senior Advisor, the Middle East Green Initiative, to bring his remarks.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And maybe I will be starting with challenging our MC through his language challenge that he's put. So I would start with a couple of languages. Assalamu alaikum. That's good. And then maybe to some of the Africans, I would say, well, Sannu Kudazua. Interesting. Excellencies, honorable guests, welcome to the Sustainable Energy for All Global Forum. And I should start with thanking the government of Barbados for hosting such an important event for global collaboration to reach a sustainable energy solution for all. We are united today with a shared vision to create a more just, secure, and prosperous future by advancing the transition to clean energy. It is an honor for us at Forward 7 to be the premium sponsor of this event, which seeks to unite efforts and offer better opportunities for millions across the globe. My name is Kassem Falata, and I'm the Clean Cooking Initiative Senior Advisor. As part of the Middle East Green Initiative, Forward 7 is dedicated to providing clean cooking solutions to communities that suffer from their reliance on traditional cooking methods. As the world makes rapid progress in the energy sector, it is unacceptable for women and families to spend countless hours and risk their health in searching for fuel. Women often spend around 20 hours a week gathering solid fuel, and approximately 4 million lives are lost prematurely due to inhalation of smoke from wood and coal stoves. We strongly believe that achieving the Sustainable Development Goals is impossible. Indeed, impossible without accessible clean energy solutions for everyone. This responsibility is shared among local and international organizations as we work together to create and develop innovations and innovative solutions that address the needs of communities, while alleviating their challenges in a way that harmonizes with their environment. And we stress on one solution fits for all is not an option. At Forward 7, we are working in all fronts, be it the funding or the awareness and the training programs, because we have realized that for us to conquer this challenge, we need to work across the entire value chain. We are actively funding the harmonization of clean cooking product standards to ensure quality and safety for all users. Most importantly, we are taking significant risks by subsidizing the upfront cost of cooking kits, which is another important element in that value chain, to ensure that these solutions are accessible to those who need them most. This commitment aligns with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia vision to provide access to clean and modern energy cooking solutions that improve lives and protect the environment. In collaboration with governments across the world and relevant authorities, we have initiated projects in over 7 countries so far. Our team's work goes beyond merely providing clean cooking solutions. We have taken the time to understand the unique needs that drive different communities to use traditional cooking methods. Our goal is to discover innovative strategies that help them overcome these challenges. From establishing energy infrastructure in undesirable villages to reduce the cost of clean cooking kits and raising awareness about their uses. And we are also committed to ensuring sustainable energy sources are available rather than relying on stopgap solutions. In closing, we look forward to exchange ideas and experiences with all of you as we explore new avenues for collaborations. Together, let's innovate solutions that enhance the lives of communities and move towards a future where clean energy is accessible to everyone. Thank you.
Enjoying a calm dinner with loved ones is priceless, but it can come at a significant cost. There's one meal that costs a few dollars a day. There's meals that cost $2.4 trillion annually for 2.3 billion people to counteract its negative effects on the health, gender, and climate. A meal cooked with gas or electricity, or a meal that erodes mothers' lives. One method brings a smile, while the other leads to suffering. It's a choice between food that requires a few minutes of preparation or food that consumes years of progress and opportunities for women. Through the Middle East Green Initiative Forward 7, millions will have access to clean cooking solutions. Our goal is to support a world where everyone can have access to healthy cooking.
A challenge, yes. An opportunity, Absolutely. And speaking of challenges, Dr. Kassem, you'll be pleased to know I intend fully to take you up on that challenge, and I will be returning with some additional languages shortly. I pause at this time to acknowledge the arrival of our Prime Minister, the Honorable Mia Amor-Motley. I'm pleased to invite our next opening speaker, the Honorable Dr. Wale Edun, Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy of Nigeria.
Merci et bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Don't worry, you don't have to go for your headsets. Her Excellency, the Prime Minister of Barbados, the wonderful Mia Amor-Motley, a daughter of the Caribbean, a daughter of Africa, and a powerful voice on the world stage for development, for climate action, for economic justice, and all that is good and fair in the world. Thank you for hosting this important event. Your Excellency, President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, President Bio, the Deputy Prime Minister of Tanzania, and I think the Minister for Energy, the Chair of COP29 and representative of the President of Azerbaijan, my friend, my brother, the former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. We heard earlier from the very eloquent Lisa Cummins, Energy Minister of Barbados, and all the other ministers that have managed to make it despite the fact that there are ongoing budget presentations right at this moment. May I recognize at this point also another very energetic, very resourceful, committed, and to get me here today, very, very determined young woman, our co-host and the CEO of Sustainable Energy for All, Damilola Ogunbiyi, your co-host. Thank you. And at this point, I do thank you and Prime Minister Motley for the gracious, warm hospitality I've received since arriving at 3 a.m. this morning. The ministers from Nigeria, if I might recognize them, the Minister for Power, who I'm not sure whether he shouldn't be here, although he will talk later about the nitty-gritty, I think, of the power sector, while I will talk about the financing and the crowding in, particularly of the private sector. Chief Bayo Adelabu, and we also have the Honorable Minister for Environment, Balarabe Abbas Lawal, Honorable Minister of Environment from Nigeria. May I recognize the former Second Lady of Ghana, Samira Baumia. And at this point, I think I should say, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we say in Nigeria, all protocols observed. But you know, I do want to thank our hosts for this all-important conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and partners, it's a privilege to be here. It's my first time in Bridgetown, my first time in Barbados, and as they say, by God's grace, I hope it will not be my last. Thank you. But we are here to really unite for a cause that lies at the heart of sustainable development, ensuring sustainable, equitable, and resilient energy access for all. There are many quotations about how important energy is. I'll take the one from Mr. Ajay Banga, President of the World Bank. He says, energy is a human right. Access to energy is a human right. We recognize that achieving this vision requires bold reforms. And I must say, Mr. Ajay Banga, by leading the Mission 300, has put his money where his mouth is and has tried to live up to that belief of his, of how fundamental electricity is to human life, comfort, and even existence. It requires, as I say, bold reforms, strategic investments, and collaborative partnerships. And as we say, a famous saying in Nigeria, you cannot clap with one hand. So it takes collaboration, it takes cooperation to achieve this important vision. In Nigeria, we have taken some strides towards achieving universal energy access. The Honorable Minister for Power is nodding approvingly, so I feel comfortable to say further that I'd like to highlight Nigeria's ongoing efforts to transform our energy landscape. Nigeria's commitment to sustainable energy transition is reflected in a series of transformative initiatives designed to improve access, promote efficiency, and ensure energy security. In 2022, with the support of Damilola Ogunbiyi and SEforALL, the Nigerian government launched its Energy Transition Plan, ETP. And it's a strategy that's designed to tackle the dual crisis of energy poverty and climate change so as to achieve the all-important SDG 7 by, we hope, 2030, as well as net zero by 2060, while also providing energy for development, industrialization, economic growth, modernization of the society. Nigeria's ETP is built on decarbonizing 5 highly polluting industries: power, cooking, transport, industry, and oil and gas. Our reforms have played a crucial role in transforming the energy sector through the adoption of, we're not there yet, but more cost-reflective tariffs is the way I would put it, improving market dynamics, and encouraging the all-important private sector investment, without which you really are not going to be able to fund. Government does not have the balance sheet to fund such. And these reforms have helped unlock funding for renewable energy infrastructure. Let me just say, it's also noteworthy that Nigeria is aggressively driving Mission 300, an initiative led by the World Bank and the African Development Bank, as we know, to halve the number of Africans without electricity by 300, and by providing access to electricity to 300 people who did not have it before. And as we know, Nigeria being the largest by population and even by economics on the continent, it is the major beneficiary of Mission 300, and so we are keenly pursuing that initiative. And we're also prioritizing areas where grid expansion is challenging, ensuring that marginalized communities gain access to clean and affordable energy. The M300 builds on the success of what we have already done, the Nigerian Electrification Program, which connected over 1 million households to sustainable energy and now seeks to connect over 3.5 million households under the DRA, Distributed Access through Renewable Energy Scale-Up Program. We call it DARE. In furtherance of this program, IFC committed $70 million to 5 Nigerian renewable electricity service companies just recently to strengthen their balance sheets and long-term resilience. We have other milestones which we feel represent progress in this important area. But as we reflect on these milestones, I urge us all to recognize that this is not just about Nigeria. In case I seem to be concentrating too much on Nigeria, it is about the collective global journey towards a sustainable energy future where no one, no community is left behind. I wish you, all of us, a productive deliberations over the next couple of days as we commit to turning the discussions of today into tangible actions and not just another talk show. Let's deliver a lasting impact. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur. The Honorable Dr. Wale Idel, Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy of Nigeria. There's a quotation that I found as you were speaking, sir, that I thought was quite relevant. If you really think that the environment is less important than the economy, try holding your breath while you count your money. A quote by Guy McPherson. I'm pleased now to welcome to the stage the Honorable Doto Mashaka Biteko, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Energy from the United Republic of Tanzania. Please welcome him as he comes.
Your Excellency, Mia Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, His Excellency Julius Maad Bio, the President of Sierra Leone, my sister Damilola, a lot have been said about you. I have mine, probably I will share with you later. On the testament that she was pressing so much for us to join her on this August gathering. Honorable ministers here present, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a privilege for me to join here in Barbados for the 2025 Sustainable Energy for All, a global forum, a gathering that underscores the urgent need for collective action to achieve sustainable energy solutions that advance equity, security, and prosperity. I extend my deepest gratitude to Honorable Mia Motley, the Prime Minister, and the people of Barbados for hosting this important event. This forum, ladies and gentlemen, comes at a critical moment in our global energy transition. The theme of sustainable energy for equity, security, and prosperity indeed resonates deeply with Tanzania's 7 priorities on our shared international commitments. Now more than ever, we must catalyze actions and investment that enable countries to achieve their energy access, climate, and development goals. Under the leadership of Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, who has been championing the clean cooking agenda as a cornerstone of our development agenda, we are expanding the renewable energy capacity, improving energy efficiency, ensuring universal access to modern energy services. These efforts align with our commitment to Sustainable Development Goal 7, ensuring affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy for all by the year 2030, and the net zero targets outlined in the Paris Agreement. President Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan has been championing clean cooking solutions both in Tanzania and across Africa. Her leadership has brought global attention to urgent need for cleaner cooking fuel technologies to reduce reliance on traditional biomass fuel through various global platforms such as Summit on Clean Cooking in Africa, which she co-chaired in Paris in May 2024. A total of $2.2 billion was mobilized in a financial to support clean cooking initiative in Africa. Through the Tanzania National Clean Cooking Strategy, which takes 10 years, Tanzania aims at ensuring 80% of our households adopt clean cooking solution by the year 2034. This ambitious strategy addresses environmental degradation, indoor air pollution, and gender inequality, ensuring that energy access also translates into better health and social economic opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, ensuring that Tanzania benefits from energy transition being as a key priority to us. This is why we are complementing large-scale energy investment, such as distribution of subsidized gas cylinders for low-income individuals and households, providing financial incentives such as tax exemption to help private sector expand into remote areas, offering institutional support to the transition of clean cooking, including accelerating a clean cooking transition in schools, especially in Tanzania, a program which has been implemented by Sustainable Energy for All in partnership with the World Food Program and the government of Tanzania, and the campaign to raise awareness to bring clean cooking solution to those who need them mostly is underway in the country. Tanzania also has made a significant stride in expanding renewable energy projects such as the Julius Nyerere hydropower project with a capacity of 2,115 megawatts, are transforming our energy landscape by providing reliable, sustainable power to millions. Additionally, we are scaling up investment in solar and other renewable sources while promoting energy efficient technologies across various sectors. Distinguished delegates, regional cooperation is our key strategy in Tanzania and Africa. As a leading member of the Eastern African Power Pool, Tanzania is strengthening cross-border power trade and expanding renewable energy generation capacity by addition of 2,464 megawatts by the year 2030. These efforts will not only meet the domestic demand, but also position Tanzania as a hub of regional power trade, supporting economic growth and sustainability across Eastern and Southern Africa. Our collaboration with Sustainable Energy for All and other international partners is crucial in advancing our goal of universal energy access by the year 2030, as envisioned in the SDG 7. We firmly believe that partnership between government and private sectors is very key, and the development institutions are essential for scaling up energy clean solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, we also recognize the urgent need to reform in multilateral development banks, because as some of the speakers before me have indicated, the challenge is financing. Financing has been actually the chorus of every speaker here. Therefore, the mechanisms such as debt pause clauses during natural disasters and innovative financing tools like green bond can help countries like Tanzania to access finances. Investing in clean solutions without expanding debt stress by working together, we can ensure that climate finance flow equitable to where it is needed mostly, and indeed, developing countries can enjoy that financing. Therefore, we support vulnerable nations in adoption of climate change, while Tanzania strong support the Bridgetown Initiative, led by Her Excellency the Prime Minister Mia Mottley. The initiative represents a bold step toward reforming global financial system so that development finance become more accessible. We see this as an opportunity to address the systematic barrier that prevent development countries from securing the critical climate finance that they need. Achieving a just and sustainable energy transition requires leadership, innovation, and unwavering commitment. Tanzania is ready to play its part in ensuring that our people, and indeed all people, benefit from sustainable, equitable, secure, and energy for future. Through bold action and strong partnership, let us turn commitments into reality and pave the way for more sustainable and prosperous future for all. I thank you for your kind attention.
Asante sana. Oh, we're doing this all day. The Honorable Dr. Mashaka Biteko, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Energy, the United Republic of Tanzania. Before I welcome His Excellency, the President Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone, we're going to have a video that features some of the work being done in Sierra Leone relevant to the energy transition.
We have a vision for green industrial transformation, for our young children to comfortably study after dark, for our farmers to produce aplenty, for our hospitals to run 24/7, for our entrepreneurs to prosper in the digital economy. We have a vision for sustainable energy to power all this and more in Sierra Leone. The Sierra Leone Energy Transition and Green Growth Plan is our pathway to a better future. By 2050, we will achieve universal access to clean energy in line with Mission 300 for 100% electrification to power 1,500 health facilities and 28,000 schools. By 2050, we will achieve green growth with clean power for key industries like mining and manufacturing, agriculture, and agro-processing sector. We see change in front of our eyes. The clinic in Makali now refrigerates vaccines and provides life-saving care thanks to the Sierra Leone Healthcare Electrification Project. Shops in Kasiria are bustling, all thanks to reliable, affordable electricity. If today is already this bright, imagine the power of tomorrow, when we will double our energy jobs to 30,000 and unlock new markets, when today's investment opportunity of $6.5 billion gives us a thriving, flourishing green economy tomorrow, when we will be a leader in accelerating energy access and propelling Africa's energy transition. So, investors, partners, and changemakers, we invite you to join us to turn this vision into reality.
It is now my distinct honor and privilege to welcome to the platform the President of Sierra Leone, His Excellency, President Julius Maada Bio. Please stand.
Let's take our seats, please. Mr. Moderator, you've done a great job so far. I want to recognize you first. And then come to my sister, Your Excellency, the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Motley, and another sister, the Chief Executive Officer of the Sustainable Energy for All, and UN Special Representative Damilola. I want to also recognize my brother, the former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, a great man, but very quiet. He's here. And my sister, the former Second Lady of Ghana. And of course, all of you distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, but more specifically I came with a delegation from Sierra Leone with the Minister of Finance, Minister of Health, and many other. It gives me great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to be with you this morning. For the first time, I'm in Bridgetown, Barbados. This is my first time in the Caribbean. I don't know if they look like us or we look like them, but we look alike. And this is basically for the 2025 Sustainable Energy for All Forum, which has been convened by our two sisters. So I want to start by extending my profound gratitude to the organizers, the government, and the people of Barbados for their warm hospitality and commitment to promoting sustainable energy solutions. Today, we gather at a very crucial moment when the urgency for global energy transition calls for collective action. You will all agree with me that energy is essential to the functioning and prosperity of every economy. In fact, it is the catalyst that fuels economic growth, fosters social transformation, and enhances climate resilience. Energy drives industry, fuels innovation, empowers education, and enhances the quality of life of all people around the world. Small and medium-sized enterprises, which are the backbone, can thrive only when they have access to stable and affordable electricity. In rural areas where poverty is most severe, electrification provides dignity and security, allowing families to transition away from inefficient and polluting energy sources. Women and children who are responsible for collecting firewood and using harmful cooking fuels deserve access to clean energy solutions that enhance their health and well-being. And we are their ambassadors. We have to provide those solutions and access. Access to clean, affordable, reliable energy is a significant challenge for millions in Africa, including Sierra Leone. The urgency to close the gap is more critical than ever, and we must intensify our efforts to ensure that everyone is included in this global energy revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, Sierra Leone is dedicated to its commitment to sustainable energy. Our government has prioritized renewable energy as a catalyst for economic transformation, resilience, and social equity. We are progressing towards universal energy access by implementing policies that encourage investment in clean energy, expanding mini-grids, and forming strategic partnerships, all of which are necessary for success at the end of the road. In November 2024, during the Climate Resilience and Energy Transition Dialogue, Sierra Leone introduced the Energy Transition and Investment Plan, which aims to attract investment for 1 gigawatt of power. The Energy Transition and Investment Plan is not just a roadmap for energy development. It is actually a way for us to show our national commitment to transformative vision, and it embraces innovation, resilience, and sustainability, and tells a whole new story about us. Central to this vision is an ambitious, low-carbon development pathway, which is aimed at integrating and supporting various key national priorities. It is closely aligned with the goals of our National Development Plan, our flagship Feed Salon program, the national electrification and clean cooking strategies, and Sierra Leone's nationally determined contributions. By consolidating all of these essential initiatives under a unified strategy, we ensure that our energy transition directly supports. Our energy transition and investment plan emphasizes a stronger focus on renewable energy sources, especially hydropower and solar technologies. These will lower our carbon footprint and improve the resilience and reliability of our power supply. However, to truly realize the vision of sustainable energy for limited financing, which has been referred to here, infrastructure gaps, and capacity constraints. To effectively scale sustainable solutions, we must foster strong international partnerships, drive technological innovations, and enhance climate finance. The energy transition should be inclusive, just, and equitable. Developing nations, particularly in Africa, have historically contributed the least to climate change, yet suffer impacts. We must ensure that the transition to sustainable energy uplifts the most vulnerable and does not deepen inequalities. This necessitates strong policy measures, enhanced funding, and the exchange of ideas, knowledge between countries and industries. I urge our global partners, governments, and the private sector, and multilateral institutions to enhance collaboration on clean energy investment in Africa. We require concessional financing, technology transfer, and the innovative funding mechanisms to enable nations like Sierra Leone to develop sustainable and resilient energy systems. The transition to renewable energy is both necessary and advantageous. Sierra Leone is well positioned to take advantage of green growth by investing in off-grid solar solutions, enhancing our hydropower capacity, and expanding clean cooking initiatives. These initiatives will generate employment, promote industrial growth, and support our climate goals under the Paris Agreement. Energy access should be closely aligned with digital transformation and industrialization. By leveraging digital solutions, we can improve energy efficiency, optimize distribution, and enable local communities to promote sustainable development. I encourage all of us to transition also from talk to action. We possess the knowledge, we possess the technology and resources needed to make sustainable energy accessible to all. The drive to drive this transformation, we need strong political will, and that is why I'm here. Courageous leadership and steadfast partnerships that we seek everywhere. Sierra Leone is prepared to contribute to this global effort. We are dedicated to collaboration with regional and international partners to develop solutions that will ensure a cleaner, more sustainable, and prosperous future for all of us. When we work together, we can drive our progress forward. By working together, we can light up every home, support every entrepreneur, and educate every child. So, let us act now and make energy the foundation for a brighter and more prosperous world. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the President of Sierra Leone. The year was 2010, and I was traveling to South Africa. And she immediately said, yes. A few years later, I was traveling in North America, and I was again asked, where is Barbados? Do you know about it? I don't know about it, rather. I said, do you know Rihanna? And she was like, yes. In 2022, I was on a business trip overseas, and I met a colleague who works in a similar space. And she came to me and said, are you from Barbados? And I said, yes. Her response was, I know you're not rich on material resources, but we would trade you anything for your Prime Minister. And my response then is my response today, absolutely no. We will share, but we will not trade. A visionary leader leading the transformation of her country, the evolution of the Caribbean region, and standing at the vanguard of the climate fight globally, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome Her Excellency, since everyone is crowning Her Excellency, the Honorable Mia Amor Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados.
Thank you very much, my dear friend. Please sit. I think you realize by now that my voice has known better days, but nevertheless, it is my pleasure and honor to welcome all of you to Barbados, and to those from our nation to join with you in welcoming our friends to our lovely home. Your Excellency, the President of Sierra Leone, my dear brother, I really do want to welcome you to the Caribbean, and in particular to this country. Our two countries, I believe, have more in common and more linkages historically than most people are aware. Sierra Leone, Liberia, the Gambia are the countries that are not normally called in our relationship with Africa. But we know that once we start to unfold the historical linkages, people will appreciate why you say we look like each other. My dear brothers and sisters, ministers in particular, Deputy Prime Minister of Tanzania, my dear brother Minister of Finance from Nigeria, former Vice President of Nigeria, Second Lady of Ghana, my dear Caribbean brother, in whom we are very, very proud, Mr. Simon Steele, the head of the UN framework for the CCC, and then our very own Selwyn Hart, who continues to be a distinguished advisor to His Excellency Antonio Guterres on climate. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC said that he wouldn't trade me, that he would share me. And perhaps the word share is at the core of the few remarks that I want to make with you today. Because in a very real sense, the world as it stands today is confronted with a very difficult reality, an understanding that the climate crisis is propelling us in ways that ordinary people feel, know, are displaced. But at the same time, in spite of the valiant efforts of my dear brother, the president of COP29 in Azerbaijan, the financing companies governments of the world are saying otherwise. And ordinary people are asked to reflect on what is my reality and how do I prepare for this reality. At the same time, how do I recognize that I'm going to need to change my behavior as governments, as citizens, if we are going to overcome both the hurdles of development and the critical need to build resilience among our people. When we speak of energy in the Caribbean, we are fortunate that the majority of our people have access to energy. But we ignore the fact that across the global south, that there are, of the 1.4 billion people in Africa, 600 million people who remain without electricity. We're thankful for the leadership of the World Bank and its president, Ajay Banga, for committing to wanting to have that 600 million and to secure for 300 million energy. But 300 million people is inconceivable to us in a small rock whose population is less than 300,000 people. And the notion that we can continue with business as usual, with persons being denied access to energy, is at the core of national instability, regional instability, and ultimately global instability. I want to suggest to you that the confluence of both the climate crisis and the lack of basic energy for propelling development means that we have to redouble our efforts in spite of those who would wish now to put brakes on access to financing for ordinary people to be able to secure their future. Ordinary people need energy. It is what has propelled growth in the last few centuries in ways that mankind never contemplated could happen, to the point where our own engagement with our own sense of who we are as humanity is being put to the test with the ultimate output of energy in the form of AI. By the same token, wildfires that ravaged California in ways that are apocalyptic, or droughts that continue to affect East Africa, or hurricanes that have decimated islands that have been dear, or storm surge that has delivered a body blow to my own people and my own country here with Hurricane Beryl last year, to the point where you know that aspects of our development will have to be deferred in order to meet the very critical objective of coastal resilience and the rebuilding of coastal infrastructure, as well as our own fishing industry. These events are not in a fiction book. They are real. And the reason why I said that your word share will come to be at the center of all that we speak about today is that we are going to have to use a good cricketing term for those of you from the Commonwealth and take fresh guard again. Bridgetown 3.0 recognized that this might have been a possibility. And in it, we spoke about domestic resource mobilization. In it, we recognize that the pooling of activities would become critical. In our own region, Caribbean community, we have started the preliminary work of seeing what it can look like if instead of each country trying to go off on their own for offtake agreements or to compensate for the fact that we are one of the most underpopulated regions in the world, with the exception of Haiti, in our community, to compensate for the lack of demand, our energy capacity, our renewable energy capacity in this region is significantly higher than our ability to be able to use the offtake therefrom. And we therefore, rather than seeking to move 1-1-1-1-1-1, have to come together to determine how we can leverage Guyana and Suriname's hydroelectric potential and its vast solar because of the lands, the geothermal of Dominica, St. Kitts, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, shore wind potential and solar potential of Jamaica, Belize, the various associate territories, Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, in order to meet global demand, whether it be in Europe or Japan or wherever else. President von der Leyen, less than 3 weeks ago, in visiting Barbados to the Caribbean Community Heads of Government Conference, made us aware of the fact that they in Europe have determined that they will produce 10 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030, but they will need to import 10 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030. And while there has been much commercial activity between Europe and Africa, the reality is that within our own community, Trinidad and Tobago has stood as a credible and large supplier of ammonia, not just in this region, but to Europe already. Green hydrogen is explosive for transportation, but the conversion into ammonia creates a different business case. And I stand here today to tell you that if we tried to walk this journey alone, we would be having a lot of polite conversations in the margins and on verandas about what could be. To recognize that in partnership, we can achieve so much. Europe has made its claim very clear, and President von der Leyen called for reliable partners to be able to attain this objective. You have heard that capacity and financing continue to bedevil us. And Europe has perfected the art of using guarantees to unlock additional capital. My dear friend Arantxa Gonzalez is here as the former head of ITC, former foreign minister of Spain, and who continues to carry the flag for boosting partnerships and creating opportunities for small businesses. I'm told you're speaking tonight or tomorrow. I look forward to hearing your words. But the point is this, that in the Caribbean community alone, we have $6 billion US, and it may sound small to those of you who are accustomed to large countries, but for us, it is appreciable. But we have $6 billion US alone in domestic excess liquidity, attracting from 0.01% to, in most instances, with the exception of one country, below 5% in interest rates. And we know from our own Debt for Climate swap, supported ably European Investment Bank on the particular issue of guarantees, and then, of course, the Green Climate Fund that has remained the only major credible source for many of us in the Global South. And Mafalda, I welcome you to Barbados and thank you for your excellent work. It is the guarantee given by the European Investment Bank that unlocked that debt for climate swap for us that allows us, without increasing a cent in our debt, to be able to completely rebuild a South Coast sewage treatment plant and to carry for the first time it to tertiary level, treating water that is to go back into the aquifers, to replenish the aquifers, and to provide irrigation for farmers in the east of our own country. The beautiful thing about the game of cricket is that you learn early that you have to play on the pitch as it is, not as you would like it. And Barbados has perhaps produced more global cricketers of excellence per capita than any other part of the world. I apologize to my brothers in Grenada and Trinidad and elsewhere, even in India. But in learning that, it learns that we play on the wicket as it is, not as you would like it. And you don't spend time or energy crying over what could have been, but we deal with the world as it is on the 12th of March, 2025. I therefore ask us to use this opportunity to make the partnerships, to perfect the networks that will help us unlock the financing that is critical. I also ask us to recognize that as small states or as developing states, mimicry does not get us very far. If we try to establish regulatory structures that are known to the North Atlantic world, whose systems of development and whose institutions are completely different, we find ourselves, as my own country has done regrettably in the last 3.5 years, caught up in regulatory arbitrage that has done nothing other than to lock off and block off over $500 million of investment in renewable energy that is waiting and exploding to be put into action. And I share this with you because I'm sure that if we can learn from each other and do not have to repeat the mistakes of each other, we will get much further ahead. The reality is that most of our markets are way too small to command the attention of even commercial providers, far less to be talking about the things that are necessary to distort competition or to avoid corruption. And what we lose is time, and what we lose is the benefit of curtailing and increasing temperature globally. What we lose is an inability to build the resilience that we need. Our own energy transition investment plan contemplates that Barbados will reach net zero by 2035. We are committed to that goal. But we equally recognize, and we've had to go to Parliament twice to change legislation to start to streamline what would otherwise be complex processes that have already delayed us 3.5 years. So long as we can satisfy ourselves of the public purpose and be aware of the public mischief, we then have to find new ways that are appropriate to size and institutional maturity to be able to help us advance the execution of these targets that we have set ourselves. And I believe that if we can create, as I said, the international platform that can de-risk investments, that will allow for South-South cooperation, that will allow for the creation of guarantees so that we can better access domestic savings so that they too can be part and parcel of the community that benefits from the rewards that would otherwise be available only to established capital, that we can create a win-win through shared partnerships. And I want to remind us that even on the regulatory aspect and the issue of capacity separately, without the assistance of the Rockefeller Foundation, IKEA, and the Bezos Foundation in partnership, launched in Dubai at COP28, we would not be able to be where we are today, on the verge of finally getting access to the procurement of batteries so small that without them, we wouldn't even be able to access who would sell us batteries. But equally, so expensive that without the blended capital, the cost of electricity in the right way through renewable energy would become prohibitive and unaffordable for small populations. There is still a global conversation to be had with respect to how do you offset the constraints of size to facilitate the equitable partnership and inclusion of small states in a just transition for clean energy and renewable energy in particular. And I say so conscious that most of the times, and you heard from Lisa this morning about the curse of invisibility. Most of the time, we're invisible. And that's why you hear me say all the time, see people, hear people, feel people. Because it is that failure to recognize the circumstances and concerns of small states that will have us coming in as collateral damage in the whole exercise of transitioning to just and clean energy. I want to address one other matter this morning, recognizing that the pitch is as it is and not as we would like it. I mentioned Guyana and Suriname and Trinidad and Tobago. There are countries in this region who have had and continue to have a rich fossil fuel potential, and we must respect it. The IEA's targets, International Energy Association's targets for 2050 for net zero, recognizes 20% of energy will still come from fossil fuels. So that has now been the issue. And the issue is not fossil fuels simplicity either. The issue has always been, Selwyn, emissions. Methane is 80 times, and I'm not speaking to those of you in the audience who know better and know more than me, but I'm speaking to the wider population. Methane is 80 times more destructive than carbon. The problem is that carbon stays in the atmosphere for centuries, but the good thing is that methane actually, according to the scientists, will only stay for about 12 to 15 years. It is therefore entirely possible for the world to see appreciable progress if we can settle not on a voluntary compact for the eradication of the methane that is destroying so much of our atmosphere, but for a global compact. And why is the global compact in the interest of everyone? Methane predominantly comes from leaks in gas pipes and the flaring of gas. If you stop flaring the gas, what happens? You earn money. If you stop allowing the leaks and you fix the pipes, you do what? You earn money. And in the circumstances, it then becomes a win-win for the owners of the pipes and the owners of the gas platforms, but it becomes a win for the people of the planet and the planet itself. I believe that this is a starting point for bridging the gap between those who want and those who do not want, those who believe and those who do not believe. For it is not required of us to sing from the same choir, nor is it required from us to agree with each other on everything. But where we can make sound progress that makes sense to you for whatever motivates you, and makes sense to me for whatever motivates me, then let us have action and progress on these matters that can advance us forward. The satellite technology exists today to show us exactly where the methane leaks are globally. And if we, therefore, can set some modest targets, Simon, for COP30, in recognizing that in the same way we were able to deal with the Montreal Protocol and to deal with the damage to the ozone layer and to change how we deal with air conditioners and all of the other things successfully, that the world potentially can set itself a target that by 2040, methane should be removed from the atmosphere in playing the damaging role that it does. Now, I am not a scientist, but the scientists have advised me consistently that if that can happen, that we will actually see a reversal of 0.5 degree in the world's temperature. I ask us, as we contemplate all else that we are doing here on sustainable energy, being a zealot will not help anyone, but being practical and finding points of cooperation. And let me be very clear, the views in those countries which I've spoken about are credibly committed to fighting climate. But they equally recognize that they need to finance their way to net zero. And if they are precluded from being at the table with respect to the use of fossil fuels, they believe that they will be negatively affected. What then brings me to the second major point, that if we get the methane equation correct, it will actually buy us time to scale up decarbonizing technology for fossil fuels. If we get the time right, in the same way that we can send a man to the moon and aspire now to send one to Mars, we can get the decarbonizing technology absolutely correct to be able to ensure that what is the little thing at the back of most of our minds in here doesn't come true. And what is that? Simon, COP is a wonderful exercise of commitments, but commitments are not capacity. And if we cannot have a real pathway that appreciates capacity to renewable energy and to just transition into clean energy, then fossil fuels will continue to be the driving force that brings development under the Sustainable Development Goals to people. And these are the complex issues that cannot be captured in a 60-second soundbite and in a 4-inch column story in a newspaper. I ask us to recognize that this, as we move into COP30, requires mature debate and conversation. As we reflect on the geopolitics of the world as it currently is, requires mature conversation. And as we reflect on the utter and absolute vulnerability of populations to the climate crisis, demands mature conversation. I hope that this gathering here on this site at Barbados that just over 30 years ago was the site for the Barbados Program of Action, which led to a concrete, credible pathway for small island developing states development, just as it did 30 years ago. That today, Damiolo, your energy and passion and commitment to provide sustainable energy for all can receive a much, much needed injection, not just of hope, but of commitment and maturity to allow us to achieve for the people in whose names we serve the opportunity for true and genuine development. I want to end by thanking my Minister of Energy, who has been indefatigable and who has had to confront the very complex issues at a domestic level, way beyond the capacity of a small island developing state, but who has not surrendered nor retreated and has therefore allowed us to continue to be on target for meeting a very credible goal of net zero by 2035. I thank her and her team, her PS, and all of the technical people, because these are the same people responsible for Business Barbados, responsible for small business, responsible for commerce, responsible for so many other things as is wont in small island developing states. So I end as I started. The only way she and the rest of us can survive is through sharing and through partnership. And that, for those who are strong practitioners of religion, you will appreciate that that message of sharing, partnership, and love has endured for millennia to keep humanity alive and to keep humanity believing that better can and must come. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister. I'm not often short on words, as you may have guessed, but truly a challenging and inspiring address. Please do have your seats. I want to invite Prime Minister to return to the stage, and I'll also invite at this time the Chief Executive Officer of Sustainable Energy for All, very well. Excellent. So we're poised at this time now for a tete-a-tete conversation, where Prime Minister Motley will be engaging in an interview discussion led by Dr. Akshat Ratti, senior reporter from Bloomberg News. Please welcome him as he comes.
Prime Minister, thank you for that speech, and thank you especially for making time during this week when the budget discussions are going on. I recognize how valuable this time is that you're spending at the forum. Let me start by the message you had in your speech about practical and feasible solutions. One of the things that the Bridgetown Initiative and many of the projects that you mentioned around debt swaps for climate resilience, for ocean conservation, for having a resilience fund where employees pay into it here in Barbados, those are practical, feasible solutions. Now, in the years of effort that you have put in to try and develop these solutions, in this moment where we are seeing a backlash on climate policies all around the world, be that in rich countries like the US, where Donald Trump has pulled the US out of the Paris Agreement, be that in Europe, that is committed to climate action, but is now being forced to spend heavily on defense and thus shrinking the fiscal space it has for climate investments. What do you think are the lessons that you have learned from these solutions that developing countries should be taking on board right now?
As I said, I think we have to start at home first. On Monday, the Minister in the Ministry of Finance delivered the budget speech for our government.
And in addition to employees and self-employed persons contributing 1/4% of their earnings to a resilience and regeneration fund, we have now asked employers to match the contributions of the employees, and we've gone further. And I have been inspired by Germany, quite frankly, in so doing. Last week, the new Chancellor of Germany made it absolutely clear that whatever it takes to keep his country stable, he will undertake, and that he would be reviewing the fiscal rules, particularly with respect to military spending. Our Parliament has now before it a statement from the Minister in the Ministry of Finance that we will now commit to add every year, starting from this year, 1/4% of GDP in a regeneration and resilience fund, and that we will amend our fiscal rules to be able to accommodate that commitment on an annual basis, because climate is for us an existential crisis. And we start, therefore, with what we can do for ourselves. I've then adverted to what we can do regionally. We have in this region $6 billion in excess liquidity, excess domestic liquidity. On its own, it may be difficult to employ, but in partnership with guarantees, whether from the European Investment Bank or other entities, all of a sudden, that can be leveraged to be able to secure far more funding than is currently available now, so that we can finance much of our own development. I am sure that the same obtains in Africa, the same obtains in the Pacific, the same obtains in Latin America. What we have now to explore is whether the cross-border flows south-south can also work, because the real problems have come north-south in determining what are the risks and what is the lack of information that would otherwise preclude us from being able to have access to affordable interest rates for capital that is used or pooled. We need to create opportunities for each other, and I genuinely believe that that is entirely possible. I'm also not, however, distracted by the fact that the US, as is their right, has withdrawn from the Paris Agreement. But at the level of the federal state, as we keep hearing in the US, there's a clear division between what they do and what is done at the level of states and what is done at the level of municipalities. And I think you will find that a number of municipalities and a number of states are still investing their money in green energy, in green bonds, and therefore there will continue to be a strong financial pool of funds available for good, credible investments. I make one last point. On mitigation, it doesn't matter where mitigation takes place in the world. It just needs to take place. And we need, therefore, to find a way of creating a global fund that can finance the most efficient and effective mitigation projects. Because if we are not going to have the power of one or two countries behind what we are doing, then in my own country, there's an old saying, one blow is kill old cow. One blow is kill old cow. And what it simply means is that one by one, we can effectively still achieve what we need to achieve. If we were to take the cumulative domestic excess liquidity of the global south and start to determine how we can work with strategic partners, whether it is Europe, whether it is China, whether it is India, whether it is Brazil, regardless whether it is the Gulf states, we will then begin to recognize that we have access to a lot more than we are actually currently aware of.
One thing that came up in other speeches as well as yours is the need for financing. And many of the examples that you have secured here in Barbados have relied on some amount of support from development banks. We talked about the importance of guarantees in enabling these solutions to happen. Now, I hear from people who are in development banks, there is a sense of fear that with the US, which is amongst the largest shareholders in development banks, that there will be pushback against anything that is labeled climate, as we are seeing already in the legislation in America. So if development banks are supposed to play such a crucial role in guaranteeing access to finance for developing countries toward climate resilience, how do you go about getting that finance if development banks don't play the role that they have played for Barbados?
Well, the first thing is that they must stop letting fear be a paralyzing emotion. Because if they do that, then they'll realize that they can use the capital that they have and they can work together with others in guarantees to leverage it to be able to unlock far more than it would otherwise unlock at this point in time. I remain, as I said, optimistic because I believe that we have not really scratched the surface between what we have. The problem is that we're also trying to secure what we know we will need down the line. But sometimes you have to stop and start with what you have, where you are, while building up the capacity to achieve what you need 3, 5, 7, 10 years from now. And that sense of ultimate pragmatism and the blinkered approach that does not cause you to spend your energy and emotion in fear, but actually causes you to be able to unlock what you have is what I think is required in this moment. I also think that, let us be real, the United States is driven not just by presidential directives or governor's directives or congressional directives. It's driven by commerce. And there are companies that are going to find that they will be outside of the opportunities with respect to the procurement that must take place for the green energy transition. Every single export-import bank in the world has some kind of domestic interest by ensuring that their suppliers of products and services benefit from any concessional funding that is given. That's not going to change overnight in the US. So I am prepared to wait for the medium to long game and to recognize that those persons who are going to be left out of the equation will soon find a voice as to how to get back in on the issue of the green energy transition. And let us be also very clear. The United States has been an engine of scientific and engineering innovation, and therefore I expect that those people will also not want to be left out of what is the most important scientific and engineering innovation that is necessary globally.
One more question around politics around the world, not just in the US, is that we have seen in election after election that there is issues beyond climate action that are of focus for people. So cost of living crisis, inflation, where people think they are paying too much or aren't getting a good deal from government. But as you've done with the Resilience and Regeneration Fund, where you have contributions coming from employees into the fund, how do you make that case? How can other developing countries make that case to their people that climate action is in their economic interest so that they can win elections and act on this problem?
Human beings know that they can't only live for what is necessary today, but they're building towards a future. The reason we educate children is not that we expect them to get all the knowledge in 1 year. It's a process, and it's no different in this respect. Similarly, we all know, and there's the old adage that I use repeatedly with my people here, many hands make light work. And if we don't recognize that all of us have a role to play, then we are not being truthful nor faithful to our people. The reality continues. Every person, through their actions and through their contributions financially, however small, however large, have a role to play in confronting what is really a crisis of humanity, because the planet on which we live, the only livable planet that we know, is in fact at risk. Now, I don't even want to say luckily, but the truth is that the last 5 years have shown us enough climate disasters globally where ordinary people have either lost their lives or livelihoods, that anyone who is thinking will realize that this is not just a coincidence or a quirk of nature. and that we are on a pathway that will in fact put all of us at risk. We used to say in the Caribbean all the time, Simon would tell you, that we are the canaries in the mine. Regrettably, those who were watching on now know that this is not a joke, or this is not a problem for SIDS somewhere elsewhere. The majority of the North Atlantic countries, and indeed the emerging market economies, China, Israel, India, Brazil, all have coastal communities and coastal cities that are going to be significantly put at risk. In Africa, when you fly over and you see the big brown swath of land that is inhospitable to development and farming, you then begin to better appreciate why there may be issues of insecurity permeating the continent if people can't guarantee to their citizens simple things like making a living, like being able to farm, like being able to access water, like being able to withstand a drought. So I am very, very clear that in the same way we tell our children what is good for them and how to be able to prepare themselves to grow up, how to manage risk, they learn not to touch fire from early. They learn how to cross a road. They learn how to do basic things. Why are we frightened for having these conversations with our population when in truth and in fact it is their actions and their contributions that will help us scale up to make the difference?
Now I want to ask you two small questions. One is that, as you've heard people around the world wait to hear what you have to say. I've been to COP meetings, and when there's a list of people who are going to speak, everybody rushes to hear Prime Minister Motley speak. The reason is twofold. One, you bring moral leadership, and you bring feasible solutions. We talked about the feasible solutions, but the moral leadership at this time matters more than ever. You've talked about how the Caribbean needs to be seen and heard. When there are such loud voices around wars, around economic distress, around trade wars happening around the world, how do you keep the moral leadership a focus in this conversation on climate?
By remaining resolute in saying what you believe and what you stand for. Look, I just gave you the example of methane. The fact that others will find potentially an opportunity for cooperation in controlling methane by stopping the flaring of gas and by fixing gas pipes does not cause me to change my fundamental beliefs as to why I'm asking them to do it, so that we don't change who we are, but we find opportunities for collaboration and partnership where there exists, and then where there continues to be divide, we continue the conversation to see how best we can work together to bridge the divide.
And the last question. You've been warning for many years that the world today looks a lot like a century ago.
True.
That it's imperial, that there was in 1918 a pandemic that killed tens of millions, that it followed a Great Depression, then it followed a world war and the horrors that came from the Nazi regime. In the 21st century, we've had a pandemic, we've had financial crisis, there are wars now in Africa, in the Middle East, in Europe, and to add to all that, we have climate change that we didn't have 100 years ago. So one thing I know everybody here would like to hear, how do you make a case for hope today?
Hope is a human condition that's necessary for me to take my next step. And I don't think that we should ever believe that hope is impossible because our current reality is difficult. If that were the case, my brother President Bayo would not be here today talking to me, because slavery would have insisted that we don't exist anymore in this country. So I want to remind people that hope is a condition that we choose, and we choose it irrespective of whether our difficulties are great or small. If we remember that, then we will also remember that resilience is what buttresses and gives hope its best chance, which is why we are working in the way in which we are working. So I truly believe that you have to choose hope. And if people choose hope as it was chosen by generations before who faced even greater personal turbulence, even if not planetary crises, then I think we shall make the journey.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you. Sorry for standing, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Akshat Ratti, Senior Reporter, Bloomberg News. Prime Minister, I'll ask you to remain, please. I'll invite up at this time Ms. Damilola Ogunbiyi, CEO and Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All and co-chair of UN Energy, the President of Sierra Leone, His Excellency the President Julius Maada Bio, the Honorable Doto Mashaka Biteko, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Energy, the United Republic of Tanzania, and Minister Cummins. Also, I'll invite to join us Mr. Simon Steele, and Mr. Hart, Selwyn Hart. I think we're all together.
Mayor Amo Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank and commend Your Excellency, Prime Minister Motley, for convening this important event today on sustainable energy for equity, security, and prosperity. Your partnership and co-convening together with the United Nations Sustainable Energy for All and with Damilola Ogunbiyi shows the power of partnerships for change. More than 685 million people worldwide still lack electricity, and 80% of them live in Africa. 43% of Africa's population, or 600 million people, lack electricity. It's unbelievable. And almost 1 billion people have no access to clean cooking solutions. This is a global challenge we can and must resolve. We must do so because without electricity, there cannot be learning in schools. Hospital services will not work. Water and sanitation will not work. Businesses will not work. Jobs will not be created. Industries will not work, and economies will falter. That is why the African Development Bank and the World Bank partner together to launch what is called Mission 300. Our goal is bold: provide electricity access to 300 million people in Africa by 2030. It was an unprecedented alliance that Ajay Banga, President of the World Bank, and I forged and launched, a clear indication of the need for global transformative partnerships to solve problems at scale. We were joined by a group of partners, including the Rockefeller Foundation, led by my friend Raj Shah, the Sustainable Energy for All, led by my sister Damilola Ogunbiyi, and the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, with a great support from Prime Minister of Norway, Jonas Gahr Støre. Now, 5 weeks ago, the Africa Energy Summit, organized by the African Development Bank and the World Bank, was held in Tanzania, hosted by President Samia Suluhu Hassan of the United Republic of Tanzania. The World Bank, the African Development Bank, and several global partners collectively committed $55 billion towards the goal of Mission 300. The Dar es Salaam Declaration on Mission 300 was unanimously endorsed by the African Union heads of state and government this month at its ordinary summit, which was attended by my dear sister Prime Minister Mia Mottley. To complement the Mission 300, the African Development Bank is also invested in the $20 billion Desert to Power program, which is targeting the development of 10,000 megawatts of solar power across 11 countries of the Sahelian region of Africa to provide access to electricity to 250 million people. So, together, the Mission 300 and the Desert to Power program will provide electricity to 550 million people. That will cover 96% of the 600 million people in Africa without electricity. That is simply incredible. Now, that's the kind of scale we must work globally if we are to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, equally important is the lack of access to clean cooking, which leads to 600,000 deaths of women and children annually in Africa just because of indoor air pollution from reliance on cooking with firewood, charcoal, kerosene, and biomass. That is why the African Development Bank Group pledged $2 billion over 10 years towards clean cooking solutions in Africa. Right here in Beach Town, let us galvanize further partnerships that will deliver universal and sustainable energy for all across the world. Together, by our bold, decisive, and transformative actions, let there be light. Thank you very much.
That was Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank. To bring remarks, I'm now pleased to welcome the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. You saw him in the photo earlier, Mr. Simon Stiel.
Thank you very much. I need to just make a comment. Raphael, in your opening, you spoke of Barbados being the most beautiful. I have to remind you of an island just to the west of us that may also claim that same title. It's absolutely wonderful to be in my home region here and the opportunity to address all of you today. So, Excellencies, friends, last year, investments in clean energy and infrastructure reached $2 trillion. That is twice what was invested in fossil fuels. This is because it makes far more economic and commercial sense. Countries understand that cleaner, cheaper energy drives more economic growth. It means that more jobs and greater prosperity, more secure, affordable, and accessible energy, health benefits without choking fossil fuel pollution. But the reality is that the $2 trillion clean energy boom and all its massive human and economic benefits are being enjoyed by only some countries and communities. This is our next collective challenge. How do we ensure that investment goes global? That investors understand that the opportunities far outweigh the risks in developing countries. Access to energy is essential to our collective human development. We know that getting the basics right, access to energy for population development, access to clean cooking, for population health and well-being is the fundamentals of progress. 800 million people globally do not have access to electricity, let alone clean electricity. 2.3 billion people globally are without access to clean cooking, of which 1 billion of those reside in Africa.
resulting in the premature deaths of millions every year. I'm tired of SIDS and LDCs being the moral leaders with their voices out in front, delivering for the global narrative on what the world needs, while struggling to deliver the fundamental goods at home because of the lack of international support. For too long have we been told that investment in green tech requires scale that islands such as Barbados and smaller island developing states don't have. A solid plan of how to move on from the existing diesel generation to transition away from those stranded assets and out of the straitjackets that has hampered our ability to implement. And finance is central to that. The two-track energy transition should end here and today. Minister Cummins, in her opening remarks, asked us the question, what do we need to leave here over these next couple of days with? And certainly shifting that dialogue that has been ongoing for decades to bring that to an end with clear, concrete deliverables. It's crucial we see far more and better climate finance flowing sooner, scaling up quickly in the years ahead. And that finance is equitable, transparent, and predictable. It must go from words and pledges to funds flowing in the real economy, reaching and benefiting people on the ground, delivering those concrete actions. The climate finance goal of $300 billion that we agreed in Baku is a baseline, not an end line. Now on the way to COP30 in Belém, I'm heartened by the work that Brazil and the COP president-designate is doing to ensure that we eventually mobilize even more finance to $1.3 trillion per year by 2035. The Bridgetown Initiative and the foresight of its architects must be